Hello everyone, this is Tammy from Tammy Colors 2, and I am doing a color in chat, and I'm telling you about the story of me and my husband. Everybody wanted to hear how we met and how we got together, so I am going to do that. I actually did this video once, and I wasn't happy with it. I think I rambled and went off topic a little bit, so we're going to try again. I picked a picture today. I'm going to do him. It seems like everybody likes watching me color in pencil, so I decided I would do a pencil picture. I pulled out some colors. I'm using Black Widows, and here we go. So I need to preface this with the fact that when I met William, I was actually married. So we will start there. We actually met in 2005 in Las Vegas, of all places, because neither I nor my husband belong in Las Vegas. He doesn't drink at all. It depends on who I'm with. I don't generally drink a lot. And we don't gamble or do anything like that. But, it's because of shows like conventions. So, let me start with 2004. 2004 was probably one of the worst years of my life. In January of 2004, I was, was in the process of dropping my then husband off to go to Iraq. We had to meet in the early morning to put him on a bus to go to the place where they would all be for a couple weeks before they went to Iraq. And that same morning, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm standing there and all the wives and people are there, and my phone rings and it's my mother. And everyone knows that unless it's a baby being born, no call at 4 o'clock in the morning is a good call. And it was my mom calling to tell me that my grandmother had died, which was, so this was January 4th, so not a good start to the year. It was not a surprise, to be fair. She had been sick. She was 90. She was a couple weeks away from her 91st birthday. So it was very sad, but it was not unexpected. As a matter of fact, we had a going away party for my husband, and I stopped to see her on my way home, and I knew that it would probably be the last time that I talked to her. And that was like the day before. Yeah, I think it was the day before. So anyway, then, let's see, this is January 4th. Then in March, we had a greyhound, and we had him for 7 years. He was 9 at the time, and one morning I woke up and was getting ready for work and had to take him out. And he was very lethargic and he was vomiting. And I didn't know what to do, so I called the vet, and they said they would work him in. So basically what I did was I dropped him off, and I went to the office because I actually needed to go in that day for something. And they called me later and said, you have to get here now. So I basically dropped everything, left the office, came back, and he had a hemangiosarcoma, which is a tumor on the heart, if you know. And I spent the entire afternoon, day, begging for options, and as you know, there really aren't any. So I had to put him to sleep. And I mean, I laid on the floor and I agonized because it was literally the first pet that I ever owned that I had to have put to sleep. And I was devastated. I cried and cried and cried for I don't know how long, weeks. I was so depressed. Then 2 weeks after he died, a couple years before, I had been in a car accident. I was sitting at a traffic light and an F-350 rear-ended me and pushed me into someone else. He was going at about 45 miles an hour when he hit me. My car looked like an accordion. I was fine. Everyone was fine. Except the lady in front of me, who got some scrapes on her bumper, had to be taken to the hospital. And, yeah. So she was suing the guy behind that hit me, except they couldn't find him, so I was included, and it was a long story. But anyway, it all came out fine, but I was beside myself because I had never gotten lawsuit papers before. And I was alone, and, my insurance company, which is amazing, took care of it all. But anyway, so that I didn't need. So that was kind of how my year started off. Well, then the good thing that happened is that in May, for Mother's Day, I ended up getting my second greyhound, Midas. And he was one of the great loves of my life. And I'm still not over him. He was amazing. And he and I took on the world. But anyway, so that's how 2004 went. Now, in 2004, the project, I was working for a big company who does a lot of government work and defense contracts and stuff like that. And basically they go in, they set up an office, and when the project's over, the office kind of dissolves and, everybody goes to work somewhere else, right? So my job was ending, and unfortunately the market was crashing, so I couldn't find a job. But in the meantime, earlier, or in the summer of 2004, there was a nonprofit organization in the game industry that was moving into town because they ran a convention here and they run one in Vegas. There's a retailer show they run in Vegas. Of course, it's not in Vegas anymore. Now it's in Reno. But they ran it there, and they were moving their main office into town to be closer to where, they ran their convention. So a friend of mine knew these people or befriended them, and I ended up stopping to help them move into their apartment because two of the guys were were just moving in together to share an apartment for a while because they were new in town. And one of them actually left their partner back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I think it was Philadelphia. Anyway, that's beside the point. So I got to know them. And then when I didn't have a job and I was helping them get their new office set up, because I was alone, I didn't have anything to do, you know. I was in the process of getting a divorce by the end of 2004. Just so you know. Just because, you know, my husband and I, we were good friends, but we were not great partners. And we met in college and all that. So, anyway, we were getting divorced. And, so I was waiting for my house to be built. I was helping this organization, and they, like I said, they had a convention in Columbus and they had a convention in Vegas. So, I was helping with some of the things, you know, helped with all kinds of user or attendee registration and things like that. And, you know, I'm a computer nerd. I was a software engineer. And so, you know, I knew a lot. I would help them, but it was fun just doing work that I didn't normally do. So, I was working in the office, and this was like in, I don't know, November or something of 2004. And I said, you know, one of the guys on the board, one of the gentlemen on the board, you know, was kind of a jokester. And I was helping with their awards that they do. And I said, who is this person? Because I had never encountered anyone like them in my life. And the guy who was running the office says, oh, I'll introduce you to him when we're in Vegas. So, because I was going to Vegas to help with the show, because I didn't have a job and they were paying me to help out in the office. Actually, that may have been later. Well, I'm confused. I can't remember, like, what point I didn't have a job. I mean, I know in 2004 and 2005, it was on again, off again. I think it was mostly 2005, because I know that when I went to, I think what happened was the contract ended, and then I ended up getting my job back because the lady at the state that we turned it over to got sick. And so they asked me to come back, and that's kind of what I was doing. So I was making money for a little while. But anyway, and I needed to find a house to move out because my husband and I were getting a divorce, and I was giving him the condo. So I had actually found another condo, and I was waiting for it to be built, right? And I was working kind of at my old job. So in March, I was literally waiting, in March of 2005, I was literally waiting on my condo to be built, to be finished so that I could move out of my husband's and my condo. And he wasn't going to be back until like the summer. And we just agreed that I would find a place and move out by the time he got back. But there was like no hurry because, well, I was kind of watching our condo while he was in Iraq, right? So we went to Vegas, and a friend that I actually worked with at my company was also working at the company that left. The contract ended. We had been working on the same contract. And so he and I were both working for this organization. We're like best friends. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for him, I would never have met my husband. So anyway, full disclosure, I have always hung out with guys. Guys have always been my friends. So it's very normal for me to have male friends. Friends, like just friends, not friends with benefits, friends. Just clearing that up. But anyway, so he and I were out, and we were making sure the exhibit hall in the casino, and at this time it was at the Riviera, which no longer exists. But in 2005 at this show, we were getting set up, and the exhibit hall was all set up, and we were going around making sure all the exhibitors had Wi-Fi. And I was headed out of the exhibit hall, and my friend that was running it at the time said, "Hey, let me go introduce you, to Will, who is now my father-in-law." But anyway, so he takes me, and actually my father-in-law and my mother-in-law were sitting there, and he says, introduces me to them, and Will says, I see out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy in a suit, because William always wears suits to retailer conventions, because it's business. It's not a public convention. It's a sale, manufacturers selling to retailers, right? So he always wears a suit, and he was dressed in a very nice suit, and I just turned my head, which I'd never done in my life. Like, it just wasn't something that I did. And I turned my head, and Will goes, "Oh, oh, have you met my son, William?" And whether I said out loud or was just thinking in my head, "Wow, that's your son?" I don't know. I feel like I said it out loud. Of course, I'm not sure I exclaimed it. I think I said it maybe, and it was just, kind of to myself. But anyway, so William walks over, and he says hi. And for the first time in my life, I am starstruck by a man, except for Thor, Anyway, Thor is a whole other joke between me and my husband, so. But anyway, so the rest of the convention, you gotta understand, I don't know really where William lives. I mean, I was introduced to him, and the entire rest of the convention, I kept going up to his booth and talking to him. Like, I was just completely infatuated, and I hadn't been that way in so long. I mean, I had been married for 10 years. I had only dated one guy, and so it's like in the last 14 years. So it was like, I didn't quite know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking anything, I suppose. I didn't have any intentions, and to be fair, you don't know, like, you meet people at conventions and you don't know where they live. You don't know where they're from. Generally, unless you ask. But, so, I just kind of talked to him during the convention, and I thought he was so cute. He might be the cutest man I had ever met. But, that being said, the convention ended. no, I did not get his number or anything like that. So, you know, it was just like a friendship, and I didn't really think about it because I meet people all the time, you know, just didn't really dawn on me. So later that year, we were, so in the summertime is the public convention, and then usually around late July, August, that's usually in June, May or June. I think now they try to have it on Father's Day, but at the time it was like late May, early June. And then after that would be Gen Con, which is the United States' biggest convention, game convention. If I didn't say, this was game in the game industry. So anyway, and my husband was working at a dice booth. He works for a dice company that he's worked for a very long time. At the time he wasn't self-employed, but he is self-employed and works for a lot of different game companies. But anyway, so when was it? It would have been August, because Gen Con's usually in August. I was representing the organization that I was doing some work for in the game industry that, you know, that ran these two conventions. They go to Gen Con and set up a booth and, you know, advertise their stuff. That's perfectly normal. So I went, and, you know, since this is an organization that is a nonprofit, they have board members, right? And Will is on the board, who is my now father-in-law. So I needed something. It had to do with the Origins Awards or something like that. So, because I was the secretary for the awards system that they have, I was doing work for them. So I went to ask for whatever I needed. I really don't remember what it was. And he says to me, call after the convention. And he hands me a card with a phone number on it. And I said, well, and it had William's name on it, my husband. And I said, you know, this is William's number. And he says, you know, he works for me, and so, you know, he'll get you whatever you need. Like, okay. So he had given me William's number, basically. I don't know if this was a plot or whatever. Which, by the way, I meant to tell you that when I met my husband in March, earlier that year, March, April, I was literally waiting for my condo to be finished so that I could move out. My husband could come back that summer, and we were going to get a divorce. But neither of us were in a hurry, you know. It wasn't like, why was I in a hurry to get a divorce? No reason. So that was what was going on with that. So I've still got this divorce in process. But, so Will gives me William's number to call. And then I think in the process, or in the coming months, like, because I didn't end up calling until October, and this would have been August. So I think I got what I needed at some point. And, you know, William and I had talked at conventions, at the two conventions. I talked to him at Origins. I talked to him at Gen Con. I had met him at the other convention in Vegas. And, you know, I liked him. as a friend, at least. You know, I'm still married. I'm in the process of getting a divorce, so I didn't really have any intentions or whatever. But I liked talking to him. So I called that number at some point in October. Now, what I didn't know was that they went to Germany in October, and they were usually gone for a couple of weeks because I was new to the game industry, so I didn't really know what went on. So I called and left a message, and it was a voice machine, voicemail, not voicemail, you know, a message machine, like, that has tapes in it. And I ended up naming it Fernando because I would call all the time and William would be busy. And this was later. I had a relationship with Fernando because I would always call and William wouldn't answer for some reason because he was busy. But anyway, so I called, I left a message, and then I didn't hear back. And I thought, oh, and I don't know what I was thinking. I just never called a guy before. You know, it had been a long time since I called a guy that, you know, that I didn't really know. And so a couple weeks later, I had just thought, well, he doesn't want to talk to me. We had just gotten along so well at the conventions, and his dad gave me his number, and I thought, why don't I call and see, you know? So he calls me back. It was like 3 weeks later, he calls me back, and he's like, I'm sorry, I was in Germany. And so after that, we started talking on the phone occasionally. You know, I think we would talk like once a week, like just as friends, right? I was in the process of getting a divorce, so I would talk to him about stuff and how frustrated I was, and, you know, just total friend stuff. He was like he really, really helped me during my divorce because we were friends. And so there's a story that one time, that sometime between, I think it was in the fall, because I was living in my house, and my husband had come home and I had left. We like divided everything in half, and, you know, we weren't fighting about anything. And I had left, like, I basically divided all the pictures and left what I thought he would want. And so one day he says, hey, you know, do you want, there was something that he had that he didn't want. It was a table. And he's like, do you want this? And I'm like, sure, I love that table. And so he's like, I'll bring it over. And he brought it over, and he had all these pictures that I had left him. And for some reason, after he left, I just got really upset because I'm like, if he didn't, you know, if he doesn't want these pictures, he doesn't want to remember that we had a relationship or whatever. I mean, not that I was all that upset that the relationship was ending, mind you, but it just, you know, it was 14 years of my life. And for whatever reason, I mean, divorces are what they are. You get mad, you get upset. And I was just upset that he brought these pictures back. And I felt like he just didn't want to remember that we existed. And he probably didn't at the time. But anyway, so I got really mad. And I was talking to William on the phone, or I called him, and I was telling him how upset I was. And I said, if he doesn't want to remember or think about the fact that we even had a relationship, then I'm going to just take all those pictures, and I'm going to take my old wedding dress, and I'm going to put them in the backyard, and I'm going to light them on fire. And William says, and this is typical of my husband, he says, you can do that, but do me a favor, just do it tomorrow. And, you know, and I was all upset, and I'm like, okay. And of course, tomorrow you don't do it because you've calmed down, right? So, I mean, that was like Williams and my conversations. So, that was fun. But eventually, but anyway, in January, I think it was January 6th of 2006, I was officially divorced. You know, and I called William and told him I don't know if are you really excited? I mean, sometimes you're excited, but I mean, it's like, it's kind of sad in a way because it's the end of something that you didn't really think was ever going to end. But anyway, so so that was all over. I was officially divorced. And I was still doing work from time to time for the nonprofit organization. And in January, there was a convention in Toledo. And, you know, William and I had been talking, but, I mean, other than the 3 conventions, I mean, we had never seen each other. Like, our relationship was entirely on the phone. So, I had to go represent the organization at this convention in Toledo. And William calls me one day and he says, well, you know, because I was like, I don't know anybody. I had been talking to him on the phone, and I'm like, I don't know anybody up there, and it's going to be weird because, like, I had been married. I'd never been anywhere alone. You know what I mean? Like, I always had people around, and I mean, they were going to be there, but I mean, like, as far as staying at a hotel and doing all that, I mean, it was very weird to me because I'd just never done it. So, and I was telling him about that. And so he calls me back like a few days later and he says, you know, I have a spare bedroom. He's like, you can stay here if you want to. You can stay with me. I said, but you live in Ann Arbor. Because at the time, over the course of our friendship, I had found out that he lived in Ann Arbor, which I live in Ohio, it's about 3 hours away. So, you know, I think I was excited that he didn't live halfway across the country, which is entirely possible when you meet people at conventions, right? But anyway, so he says, I said, well, let me think about it, right? And in the meantime, I'm thinking, he's an axe murderer, right? And, I don't know him. And is it proper for me to stay at his house? And, I was just all confused and I didn't know what to do. And I was really like, he's an axe murderer and he's going to kill me. Even though I knew him and I'd talked to him quite a few times, it's like, all of those fears just kind of come to fruition in your head, right? So anyway, but I called him back and I had decided to stay. I said, I thought, well, you've talked to him. I think you'll be okay. You've met him at conventions. It's not like you don't know and you're just staying in a spare bedroom. I'm sure it'll be fine. So anyway, I talked myself into it. And he and I had talked quite a bit at this point, and I did like him, but I didn't know what to do with relationships. Like I said, I had been been in a relationship for 14 years. I didn't know what to do. What color was I'm gonna do his jacket. So, went to the convention, and it was in Toledo, but he lived in Ann Arbor, so we left my car at one of their friends' houses in Toledo, and I just rode back and forth with them in the van every night. And so William and I would talk, and, you know, we were pretty good friends at this point, obviously, because he had been talking to me through my divorce, and he always listened. I mean, and the one thing about William that always surprised me, and I don't know if this says something about society or what, but every time I called him, he was genuinely happy to hear from me. Like, when he answered the phone, he was just genuinely happy. And I don't think I'd ever met anyone who sounded happy to talk to someone. I mean, it was just unreal. Maybe I had the wrong friends. I don't know. But so, you know, and he was happy for me when I got a divorce and all that. So I was staying with him, and it's very late when these conventions are over. It's like 10, 11 o'clock by the time you get packed up. It's midnight before you're getting back to your hotel room or wherever sometimes. So, because it was like a half-hour drive back to Ann Arbor from Toledo. So, it was cold. It's January in northern Ohio and Michigan. So it's bloody cold. And, you know, like 20 degrees. And I was cold, and I came into his house, and I was like just talking, and I was nervous. When I'm nervous, I jabber like uncontrollably. So I was jabbering on to him about nonsensical stuff. And he sat down on the couch, and I was just like, when I get nervous, I just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And I was like, oh my God, my hands are so cold. And I had sat down on the couch. I'm like, and my hands were freezing. They were like ice cubes, because that's how they get. And I just, you know, me having male friends all my life, not think about it. I sat down on the couch, and I'm like, oh my God, my hands are so cold. Feel my hands. And I just grabbed his hands, and, you know, that thing you do, clasp their hands because your hands are cold. And he just got this look on his face, like repulsion. You know, to me, that's what it looked like. He said that it was, he just didn't know what to do. Because he liked me, but I didn't know it. So because he was repulsed, I thought he didn't like me. So I thought I had offended him. I thought that he, you know, didn't like me, that I had invaded his personal space, all these things going through my head, right? And so yeah, I think he hates me or doesn't like me or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so we'll just be friends. But I don't know. I kept getting vibes all weekend, like all weekend that weekend, that, you know, maybe he did like me. And I couldn't tell. And I'm like, how do you know, Tammy? You haven't done this in forever. And you just got divorced. I mean, this is like the end. I think this is the end of January, beginning of February. And you're like done with men, so, you know, it's not like you're looking for a relationship. And so he I just kind of went on the rest of the weekend, and we talked, you know, our friendship was normal. And then when I was getting ready to go home that weekend, he said, or they took me to get my car, and it was a really nice day. It was sunny, I remember that, and he was helping me load my bags into my car, and he just had this look on his face, like we were standing there talking like you do when you're saying goodbye. And, you know, this was only like probably the 4th time we had ever been together. We'd talked a lot, but we'd never been together. And he's got this look on his face like, I don't know whether to hug her or shake her hand, or, you know, like we didn't know what to do. Like, what do we do? How do we, I mean, you know, our relationship. It was just puzzled. And he just had this horrified look that he didn't know what to do. So, I think we hugged because I felt like that was appropriate. I mean, it wasn't like we were new friends. We had known each other for a while. And I just kept wondering. I had this thought in my head, and I kept thinking, oh, Tammy, you're crazy. But so I knew he was in the van with his dad. So I was on my way home. I was driving home, and I'm like, oh, I just need to talk to him. I wasn't going to call him, but I'm like, I need to talk to him. I need to get this off my chest. Because I thought, Tammy, it's crazy. It's a long distance relationship. And then my head is going like, but what if he likes you and you guys never do anything? What if you never say anything to each other? and you die miserable, alone, and unhappy like all those movies that you watched. So I called him and I said, hey, when you get home, call me. I'll be driving for a while. So he said, sure. So when he gets home, half hour later, he calls me. And so I start on this whole spiel, and I said, I need to tell you something. And I said, I want to preface this with, I don't expect anything. I don't know how this would work. I have no idea. I don't expect a commitment or anything like that. But I just had to tell you that I like you. You know, and I feel like a freaking teenager at this point. I'm like 30 years old, and I feel like a teenager. So he says, I'm pretty smitten with you too. And I mean, literally, those were his words. And so this kind of was like, okay. So he does like me. My brain is like going, oh my God, he likes me, you know, just like kids do. And so we had like a conversation after that, and he's like, I said, I don't know how we could date, but I mean, I'm willing to drive up and stuff like that. And he says, do you want to go out in Vegas? Because it was like late January, early February, and the show in Las Vegas was in March, so it wasn't that far away. And I'm like, yeah, because we were going to be in the same place for like a week. So we decided to go on our first date in Las Vegas, where we met a year earlier. So we went ahead of time of the show, like a week prior, to get things set up and things like that. And, you know, I waited for him and his parents to show up, and I was so nervous, but I couldn't wait to see him. I was just so excited to see him. I mean, I couldn't wait to talk to him on the phone. And after that, after January, we started talking more. Like, I would come home from work, or in the morning when I would go to work, I would wait for him to come online in the chat program. Like, I couldn't wait for him to pop online. And there was no real set time that he would be online because, well, he was working for a game company at the time, but, you know, he didn't have to go to an office. He worked at home. So I, would call him. I would talk to him all day at work. I couldn't wait for him to pop online. I would go home, call him on the phone, and put my headset on and literally just go about my life, and we would talk while we were making dinner, whatever we were doing. And that was, how we got to know each other. And then we were playing an online game called World of Warcraft. And that was kind of how we ran around together. He had a character and I had a character. And it is really cool if you've never done it. It was like we were together. It's kind of like you're together in a way. It's odd to think about, but when you're 300 miles apart and you can run around in an MMO, why not? But that was our relationship because we lived so far apart. So we went to Vegas, and I couldn't wait for him to get to Vegas to see him. It seemed like it took forever, and he got there, and we went on our first date at a restaurant in the Venetian, which is no longer there. It hasn't been there for a very long time because I think it closed like the year after we went or something like that, because it mostly closed because they were doing renovations and they needed to expand, and so I think it had to go because it was in the way. But it was an Asian restaurant in the basement of the Venetian, and it was very good. So we started going after that to a place that I can't remember the name of, but it's right on the water in the Venetian, and it's like a Mexican type of food. It's very good. Oh my gosh, I just can't remember the name of it now, but I love going there. So every year from then on, we would go there because I love the Venetian. I've never actually stayed at the Venetian, but I wanted to. Oh, have I wanted to. Let's see how this blends if I do this. So we went on our first date, and then we walked back to our hotel rooms. And mind you, we were staying at the Riviera, so we walked up to the Venetian, which is a little ways up the Strip if you've ever been to Vegas. And then walked back, and my hotel room was up a floor, and for whatever reason we just stopped at his hotel room. And he had roommates, a German friend of ours, well, a now friend, it was just a friend of his at the time, but so we stood outside his hotel room, and I'm like, is he gonna kiss me? Should we kiss? I don't know. And so we didn't kiss because I don't think either one of us knew what to do, And so we went about our business and the rest of the convention and whatever. And then after the convention, I was supposed to go with him and his parents to the Valley of Fire, which we did, which is amazing if you ever get to go to the Valley of Fire out in Nevada. It's beautiful. And we crawled up on a rock. Well, I got him to follow me up onto a rock, and because I really wanted to kiss him. This is terrible for me to but I just wanted to. We'd been talking for so long, and so I lured him up on a rock away from everybody, and I was just talking to him because I didn't know how to do this. I'm like an idiot, right? I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I've never done this before. And so we were talking and talking and talking. And then when there's a kind of a pause in the conversation, I go, oh, by the way, and then I kiss him. And so that's been a long standing joke with us too. Like we would always say that before we kissed. Oh, by the way. So that was our first kiss. And then we went home and he and I started seeing each other like, a few times a month. I mean, we hung out a lot online on like World of Warcraft every night, and we would talk on the phone. And I would go up to see him like, I don't know, every like once or twice a month or something like that. And then let's see. So it was a fabulous relationship. We fell madly in love with each other. We couldn't figure out how we had lived without each other for so long. And then, so we dated for a couple years. And William is the type of person who does everything slow, which is fine with me. I mean, he's very deliberate. He thinks about everything. He's not rash. So I'm looking for my brown bug. Where is it? Here it is. So we'd been dating for a couple of years, and there's a show that they do in New York that is called New York Toy Fair. And he wanted me to go, or we had been dating for like a year. Well, no, we'd been dating for 2 years. And so I decided to go with them to this show. And the thing about New York Toy Fair, and this is the reason that he wanted me to go, is because New York Toy Fair is always during Valentine's Day. And my husband is a romantic. Sorry, he was my boyfriend at the time. And so he was disappointed that we never got to spend Valentine's Day together because he was always in New York at New York Toy Fair. So in 2008, I decided to go work the show with him. And he said, why don't we get a reservation? Why don't you find a restaurant you want to go to? And, we'll go have a nice dinner. I'm like, cool. And so I had told some of my friends about this, and they're like, oh, he's going to ask you to marry you. And so all of my friends had me convinced that he's going to ask me to marry him. And I don't know why. I mean, I know better than this, because it's not his thing. Like, he would never do it on Valentine's Day. He would be more creative, I guess. It's just not, how he works. And so we went to dinner, and I was exhausted because we had worked all day at the show, and if you've ever been on your feet for a convention, like the whole time, you are bloody exhausted by the time it's over with. So we got done with dinner, and the whole time I'm like, is he gonna ask me to marry him? I had listened to my friends, and so I was wondering, and he didn't ask me to marry him, of course. So I was kind of disappointed, but you know what? At that point, I had resolved myself anyway. I'm like, it's fine. I'm not this type of person, but I decided that if he never wanted to get married, I'd be fine with that because I love him, And we had talked about things before, I guess. It's been a while. So I hadn't I had maybe had a glass of wine for dinner, so I definitely wasn't drunk, but I was so tired. It was almost like I was drunk. And I went back to the hotel room and I was talking to him and I was saying something like, you know, if you ever asked me to marry you, I would say yes, but you never have to. And I don't know, I was just blathering on about stupid stuff that girls talk about, I guess, sometimes when they're tired. But anyway, so, and I had resigned myself that I was never going to think about it again. I mean, I was okay with it. I just made peace with it. It wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't, you know, awful. I just was okay with it. So we had been home for like a week or two, and it was leap year because in 2008 it was leap year. So he says to me, why don't you find a restaurant? And it was funny because like a month or I don't remember when it was. It was a little while. It was like a month or so before. I was at Macy's and I was shop the clearance racks and I found this beautiful formal dress that I wanted. And I couldn't justify buying it. And I remember I called him while I was standing there and I said, if I buy this dress, will you promise to take me somewhere that I can wear it? Because I mean, it was long in the back and short in the front and cut down to here. And it was gorgeous. It's black, basic black dress that was beautiful. And so, so anyway, he says, let's find a nice place for dinner and we'll go celebrate Leap Day. And I'm like, okay, you know, that sounds fun to me. I've never done that before. So I found a really nice restaurant and made a reservation. And it was like the end of dinner. And I didn't think there was anything weird about that at all. I'm sure some people would think it was weird. Celebrate Leap Day? What? But, you know, our relationship was special. So at the end of dinner, he sets a box on the table and he says, I brought something for you. And I'm staring at this box. And he says, but if you want to keep it, you have to marry me. And so I'm staring at the box and what feels like this forever, right? I'm just like, oh my God, you know, I mean, it must have been like 20 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes that I'm staring at this box going, oh my God, you know, it's this moment of terror in your brain. And I had never been in that situation before, because my last relationship was very different. And like, you know, so I open up the box and it's an engagement ring and I was like, oh my God. And so he asked me to marry him on Leap Day. 2008. We got married in May of 2009. So we have been married for 12 years. And we are extremely happy and it's been a fairy tale. Like we're, you know, he's my prince and I'm his princess and we're just so much in love. We joke all the time about how we have to be careful when we're out because people are going to think we're having an affair because we're so in love, you know. And he's my best friend. Like, I tell him everything. I talk to him about everything. We have similar likes. We love games, you know. We do, I don't know, 75% of our stuff together. And I always joke with him that I could sell him on eBay for $1 million because he likes to clean. He finds it relaxing. He'll do the dishes and clean rooms and stuff like that. He loves to dust. I don't. But so our relationship is just this perfect mixture of give and take. And we had a fairy tale wedding. That was just amazing, and I couldn't ask for anything else. I mean, and we met in Vegas, you know. At one point, you know, when we were planning our wedding, I said, maybe we should get married in Vegas and, you know, get married by Spock or whatever. And he's like, no, church wedding. Like, okay. But anyway, so that's the story. I have talked way too long about this, so I apologize. I didn't mean to go off onto any tangents, but y'all wanted to know about the man that I love, and that's our story. And it was fabulous, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I look at it like all of the things that I have done put me on a journey to find him, you know. Because one of my favorite movies is Practical Magic, and I can't believe I had forgotten about it when I did the coloring. I think it was the fall tag or the coloring scare tag or whatever. But at one point I had forgotten about movies, the Practical Magic, you know. And there's that part when she's a little girl and she's making this spell because she doesn't ever want to be in love, so she's making the impossible guy so that she can never be hurt. And of course, he does end up existing. And he has all these qualities, you know, like flip pancakes in the air backwards, one blue eye, one green eye, and he has a star. His symbol is a star and all this stuff. Ride a pony backwards. That's it, ride a pony backwards. Flip pancakes in the air. But anyway, that's what William is. William is the guy who shouldn't have ever existed, but he's everything I ever wanted. And I thank the Lord for him every day. I am very blessed to have him, and I do not take him for granted, ever. And, you know, you shouldn't. Don't take those you love for granted. Always tell them, always take that opportunity to tell people that you care about them, that you love them, that you need them. So anyway, that's my story. I need to go, and I'm sure I've talked long enough because this video is long. I hope you like my little guy. I'll finish him up, don't worry. And y'all have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.